Welcome to the OCTOPOD. I'm Kyle Davies, head of the Office of the CTO. Join us as we dive into the latest technologies and trends shaping business. Whether you're a tech enthusiast, a business leader, or just looking to stay ahead in the digital age, this podcast is for you. Let's unlock opportunities with technology together. Let's jump in. Welcome to another episode of the CDW OCTOPOD. Today, I'm joined by some additional guests. So Rob Sims with me as the wingman, and I'm now joined by Nick Garland and John Evans. And Nick, do you want to do a quick intro and say who you are, please?
Hi, Nick Garland, head of secure government at CDW.
Awesome. And John?
John Evans, head of supply management and our product data management function.
Awesome. Thank you very much, guys. So today, we're going to be diving into what the internet is currently calling RAMAGEDDon. But as we all know, it's probably a little bit wider than just that, and it's kind of been framed in this way as a meme online more than anything else. So Nick, I'm going to come to you on what we believe is actually happening right now that's causing these challenges.
Thanks, Kyle. Yeah, so in terms of RAMAGEDDon, I'm going to leave that for Rob, who's better placed to go into that. But real world events are changing how technology is being utilized across the globe. We're seeing a surge in AI, and everybody that follows the stock market will have seen the massive hype around AI over the last couple of years. That's being realized now by technology hyperscalers adopting it, and the general mass of people in many, many organizations across many continents utilizing and adopting AI. As such, the global demand for chipsets and silicon has increased. Real world events, both in Europe, the Middle East, and the Americas, has changed how data is being consumed and used. And as such, we're seeing massive demand and spikes for what is becoming a more limited or geographically aligned, more limited resource, with buying powers of global entities consuming more and more, vendors changing how the procurement looks. And as a result of that, the geographic tensions that are currently in existence are adding fuel to the fire, literally, with the supply chain. So oil and gas prices are going to fluctuate significantly. Thus, the cost of manufacturing will change. Also impacted is the ability to maneuver goods, product, raw materials around the world, which will have a secondary knock-on effect, all of which is impacting immediate availability, short and medium-term supply, while meanwhile, the cloud consumers are seeing a significant uptake in adoption because hardware is becoming less available. So it's quite a complex beast, Kyle, but there's a significant change in how technology is being utilized. People are doing more at the core, less probably at the edge, where the drive or the requirement is to do more at the edge. And maybe historically we've seen less requirement on AI, but that boom is now here, is hitting us. And as a result of that, the way technology is being consumed and utilized has changed significantly.
Yeah, and I think just to pick on your oil point there for a second as well. So I live in a property that has oil-based fuel. So I've had to buy some oil recently, literally ordered it at the weekend. I paid 62p per litre, roughly. After the moment I click submit on that, we found that the website I ordered it from went on, will be back soon. We're taking no more orders. They've come back online 3 days later, and the price is currently at 150p per litre, in less than 4 days of me ordering my initial amount. So this is an example from a consumer perspective, what it's doing, and everything, the knock-on effect onto electricity prices and everything else, and diesel and things that would come into the UK is going to be quite significant over the next few weeks and months, I suspect.
Worth adding to that is the ability to panic buy and everybody's desire to get hold of what's available now. And I know John's going to cover some of that in a minute, but we see that now is people panic buying because they know that there's a world crisis coming or is already here. And as a result of that, significantly fluctuates immediate demand versus short and medium term demand as well.
Yeah, this kind of leads on to my kind of secondary question, really, which is, do we feel this is a temporary disruption or actually a structural change in how technology supply chain is going to run moving forwards?
I think from a supply chain perspective, we're going to see a pivot in how raw materials move around the world. The certain oceans are becoming destabilized. Things will have to be flown around the world. That's going to cost significantly more money. That will drive different behaviors from a technology adoption perspective, which will change how us as consumers are utilizing it. In terms of a time frame perspective, how long and what's the necessity of adoption of technology, and everyone needs more and more tech, it would appear. So how we're using our tech will dictate whether it's a temporary or a long-term. My personal view is that this is a structural pivot in how technology is being consumed. The cost structure will change fundamentally, and as a result of that, technology availability will change. It's not necessarily going to be a bad thing. It's just going to change how we consume it, and therefore people need to plan early and think about their estates and what their estates look like, not just immediately now, but 3, 6, 9, 12 and beyond in months' terms.
I've got a pointed question for you, Nick. We've already been through this with COVID, right? It's the same thing, isn't it?
As bad and as chronically severe as COVID was from a supply and demand perspective, COVID was something that was immediately recoverable from. The world was operating in a constrained environment, but a normalized environment. This is a pivot in how technology is consumed. COVID had no impact on technology other than the way that people operated. This is about raw materials. This is about global supply. There are geographic tensions that didn't exist during COVID. People that align COVID and RAMAGEDDON to be one and the same, I challenge that, and I don't think it is the same. We will recover from this, but the recovery will be very, very different to what was the COVID recovery.
Yeah, 100% agree. And it's thought it'd be good to share that insight, because I've had conversations recently where people think this is a very similar situation to COVID, and to be clear, it is not. So, Rob, I'm going to come to you next, really. So, kind of Nick's going to give us a good overview of the macroeconomic and the geopolitical landscape that's taking place today. But a lot of this is supposedly down to AI infrastructure demand. Is that actually the case?
I think once we get out of the macroeconomic pieces that Nick talked on, like component supply and shipping, etc., the immediate impact now is due to an AI boom, and that is what is driving up the prices, and we can dig into specifically why that is in the session as well.
And do we feel that chip fabrication cycles and manufacturing plants is a massive concern for customers to be aware of?
Definitely. I think that's, to Nick's point, is the structural difference between this and COVID, is understanding why at the back end, and actually understanding some of the manufacturers in the world and how that works is important. So if you look at it from a technology perspective, there is roughly about 3 providers in the world. Called one you'll have heard of, Samsung. Everyone's heard of Samsung one way or the other, I think. But the likes of SK Hynix and Micron may not be as familiar to the general audience. But effectively, these 3 companies monopolize the fabrication of all components that either serve memory, DRAM, or NAND, flash, the stuff that creates storage. And their factories are highly adaptable to switch between them 2 production modes, which is fantastic. And they can deal with, and have dealt with, the global supply demand of them components for the last, forever. To Nick's point, in COVID, the problem was that people couldn't get into them factories to make them operate, therefore supply dries up. The fix for that is dead simple. You can go back to the factory, you spin the factory up, you get more memory and more storage. The difference now, though, when we talk about the AI boom, is that the likes of OpenAI back end of October last year, then followed by a lot of the neocloud and hyperscale providers, have effectively placed large-scale forward orders on them 3 suppliers through into 2029. The estimate is probably about 70% of them 3 organizations' fabrication capacity has been consumed by them forward orders. Therefore, fundamentally, supply and demand says that there isn't anything left for the rest of us. The other little interesting fact in there is that making this new memory type, this high bandwidth memory that's needed for AI, is estimated to be about 3x the profitability for them 3 organizations. So where does natural economics drive you to? Well, I'm going to produce the memory for the big people that have placed big orders on me that makes me more money. And everybody else will wait for whatever's left in the market.
Yeah, so I think, to summarize that those organizations, whether it's the likes of NVIDIA to a degree, Samsung, SK Hynix, Micron, they play a pivotal part into how technology is delivered to us as consumers, but then also to the enterprise that we all work in or plan to work in the future. And without those, we don't have the technology we need to do our jobs day to day, realistically.
100%. And that is the fundamental difference that Nick alluded to earlier, and why this has to be taken differently. Add in the macroeconomic factors, add in the technology factors, and we have to have different mitigation plans for this than we had for COVID. And to your point earlier, is this short-term, long-term, medium-term? The chip problem is medium-term, but the structural changes are likely to be something we need to plan for well into the future. It's that we need to learn to live in turbulent times, because that is where we are in reality today.
John, if we kind of come to you then on this, we're seeing price increases, the longer lead times, the reduction in availability, the things that both Nick and Rob have mentioned. What are you seeing? Because obviously you lead on a lot of our supply chain visibility in CDW.
Yeah, I mean, if we take a step back and just look at what is the actual customer impact, you've summed it up there. It's the availability of product, number one, and then it's pricing, number two, and the changes within those. From an availability of product, if we look at both the lead times and product availability within channel, our data is telling us that there's an exponential increase in lead times to start. So we've been really closely monitoring this since last year. The average lead time across our core product sets, when we're talking core products, it's our modern workspace, our hybrid platforms, product base. Those have gone from around a 3 to 5 day median lead time to almost a month since November. So that's huge. That's almost a tenfold increase in terms of where we were at the end of last year. It's not all doom and gloom though. There is product still available through channel. That we do a very big CTO built to order and for our customers. So we're seeing the extension where we're going to vendors and asking them specifically to build a product for us. That's where we're starting to see those lead times hit. In terms of pricing, there's been a lot of conversation around pricing. Generally, there's a lot of noise around price changes. OEMs are now moving from what was fixed price, long quote validity to that volatility that Nick's described from a geopolitical lens, a macroeconomic lens, and Rob as well in terms of technology. So pricing now is moving daily, weekly, monthly. Not only is it hitting from a memory point of view, that's also flowing through to, as we go into networking, further into products, once infrastructure costs have gone up for our software providers, this in software pricing change as well. So there is this knock-on effect that's happening across all product sets. It's not just isolated. When I hear a lot of people talk about this, they think it's isolated to DRAM and NAND SSDs. It's far, far broader than that.
Just want to really pick on something there that you kind of mentioned. So obviously the build to order, configure to order options are obviously taking longer because they are specific to a customer's request. So when you need something specific, it's going to take longer to get in this current time frame. But actually being flexible on your approach to procurement by maybe having something that's maybe a little bit more spec than you want normally, or a little bit less, then maybe actually stock available in the channel for that.
Yeah, I think that we've gone real doom and gloom on this world that we now live in. If we can add a little bit of a glimmer of hope, stock in channel and stock to our distribution partners and from our vendors for off-the-shelf stock is still relatively good. We are seeing that depleting slowly over time, but it is still being replenished. There is still stock available. What we're also noticing is changing customer behavior and the buying behavior. So it may be if we have a project that needs to be delivered, they'll be waiting for product if it's CTO build to order, but also taking what's available out of stock in channel. We're reviewing this on a daily basis, so we're taking a view every single day as to how much is available through our distribution partners, through our vendors, and overall right now the message is pretty good. We expect that we'll start to see more of a depletion as we go into H2, but at the moment, as we end this quarter and as we go into Q2, we still remain relatively positive.
Awesome. It's worth also kind of touching on that this isn't a single channel partner challenge, but this is something that's impacting every channel partner, because it's at a manufacturing and OEM level, not a VAR or SI or access to market level, which is what most customers engage with. We kind of touched on the stock availability, the price increases, and prices are increasing, as you kind of mentioned. You got to also bear in mind that this time of the year, we normally see price rises from most vendors anyway. What we're just seeing is probably more of an inflationary rise on top of the inflationary rise, which is probably what's scaring a lot of people in the same kind of vein. I think, John, you kind of touched on this already as well, but Rob, from a technologies that are most affected, we kind of touched on GPUs, DRAM, SSDs, NAND, networking equipment, or is it just anything?
I think we have to think about the wider use of memory and of storage. The obvious things are, well, my storage arrays or my laptops. But if we think about servers, they all have memory in them. We think about switches these days, they all got memory and storage in them. Security appliances, lots of memory and storage for all of them, packet forwarding rules, etc. Even then out into meeting room equipment, and we think about smart sensors and IoT equipment these days have memory on board for doing local inferencing, etc. So whereas the big impacts today are in custom ordered devices, as in end user devices, and in servers, and in starting to impact storage. As the year carries on, I think we'll see bigger impact in networking, firewalling, etc. And to John's point, if demand outstrips the ability for us to restock what's in the channel, or if your ability to be flexible on your config isn't there, then you'll have challenges. So I've got a customer at the moment that has to have a very specific build to meet regulatory compliance. Their order in January for compute will be delivered late June at the earliest, but they have no flexibility in config because of regulatory compliance requirements. And whereas other organizations that do, we're getting kit out still within a month. So flexibility will be key, I think.
And that kind of comes into then the next question, which is, if you're a procurement lead or a technology decision maker or someone's building your strategy within an organization today, how would you be planning for this over the next 6 to 12 to 18 months?
I think number one, every project that will be requiring technology support over the next 24 months needs to be on a register. Your preferred vendor needs to be on that register, and then you need a partner like us that has access to all the market information to help you map the impact on every one of them line items effectively, and then have a strategy around how you're going to deal with bringing budgets forward, changing when you procure, so that we can ensure that kit is with you for the execution of that project. So that's from a strategy and procurement lens, is being flexible, but that's same on an architectural level as well. Maybe you've always been a OEM A house and a switch B house, but if you can't get that, how flexible can you be to meet the demands of the business, but manage the operational risk of having additional equipment in your environment?
Yeah, it's a really key point, Rob. What we've noticed at a partner level is partners have reacted to this differently. Some are really well prepared and others aren't. So whether it's to that point around flexibility, it's not just taking something off the shelf. It's potentially looking at, is there an OEM that you can swap out who have prepared better, have a better, more resilient supply chain, and equally better availability, short lead times to support any projects in the infrastructure.
Nick, anything from you on what you're seeing from an advice perspective to customers?
Yeah, I think two things for me is technology is no longer a commodity. It's not readily available, and that will change more as the year goes on. In terms of previous engagements with the vendors, fully supportive of that engagement. However, the vendors' lead times will be reflected in how they deal with you, and that's worth bearing in mind. Rob and John have alluded to alternative options are always out there. Lead times will change on a week-to-week basis, and having an agnostic approach is probably preferred, because you might be able to achieve your objectives sooner with an alternative, or maybe not, but worth exploring the market.
John, you kind of touched on this before as well, but I just want to be really clear on something, which is pricing validity. I think you mentioned earlier. We have seen that quite a few of the OEMs now are coming out with, we can change the quotes up until the moment of shipping, as an example. How real are you seeing that across the OEM network?
Yeah, we've been pushing a strong message into our organization, really to make sure we're supporting customers here. So every vendor is making their own rules, as you would expect. The worst case is that they will be able to change the pricing right up until date of shipment. However, others, they have a 45-day period. Some, before it goes into production, they'll be able to change pricing. So it really does depend. I think the key message from us is make sure as a customer you're aware of when that pricing can change, and be aware of whichever products that you're buying, what that impact could be. Because again, if you think about planning and budgetary planning, Rob talked around it from CIOs and CTOs, you are going to have a budget availability for these price fluctuations. It's happening all the time at the moment, and I don't expect it to get better in the short term, at least.
So then this episode then assists to a positive end. So it'd be a nice positive statement from everyone on where we're at today. I'll go first, because then no one can steal my positive element, and then we can go to the rest of you. But I think the positive thing that I'm going to pick on is that there is stock available. You just need to be flexible in the way that you're going to procure it. Rob?
I think it's an opportunity to readdress maybe set in stone architectural principles, ways of working, and build a framework of technology adoption that is able to meet future demands and constraints in the market. To Nick's point right at the top of the call, this is going to be impacted long behind the manufacturing challenges, etc. So it's an opportunity to restructure your business to be more flexible and meet future demands.
I think when technology is not available, we've got to remember that people are. And people can do magic, and we should consider the work that technologists can deliver with your current estate as well, and that shouldn't be overlooked whilst you try to upgrade.
I think for me, whilst it is doom and gloom in the short term, that we've talked all the macroeconomic changes and the potential structural changes that we're talking about, long term, those structural changes, once they do settle down, will mean greater capacity from a manufacturing point of view, greater capacity to be able to get hold of technology. So long term, the short term pain should have a long term gain for us at the end.
On that, I'd like to close the session. So I've been Kyle Davies, Director of Technology and Services.
I've been Rob Sims, Chief Technologist.
Nick Garland, Head of Secure Government.
John Evans, Head of Supply Management and our Product Data Management team.
Thank you. Today's episode. Be sure to check out the back catalogue for more great insights. Don't forget to subscribe via your favourite podcast platform so you never miss an episode. We appreciate your support. And if you have a topic you want us to cover, feel free to reach out. Catch you next time.